There we go. Now we're live. It's really good to see you.
Hi, Laura. How are you?
I'm just peachy. How are you today?
I'm a little
I
peachy
just
myself.
it's been a chaotic week already, and it's only what? Is it Tuesday now? No, it's Monday. Oh my god, it feels like Tuesday. See what I
It's
mean?
Monday. It's Monday.
It's
Do you
Monday, but it
feel like
doesn't
the
feel like
solar
Monday.
flares are affecting you?
Big time. Yeah, I have felt a little tired and scatterbrained. I had difficulty sleeping. I try not to take melatonin unless I have to, but I took melatonin at like 1 a.m. because I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like
Mm-hmm.
I could not get to sleep to save my life last night. It was frustrating. But
Yeah,
now
and
that
last
you mention
night
it,
was the opposite for me because I was sleeping by 10:30, and I'm usually like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning.
dang, we did have some action in the flares.
Mm-hmm.
Hello,
Wow.
everyone. Welcome, welcome. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah. Yeah, they're showing up.
Let's check the graph. Oh, yep. Graph's got quite a few biggies there. See those
Yep.
3 spikes? Those are all X class.
Yep.
And the geomagnetic is acting up too. You can tell when things are starting to get weird.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
this is also full moon energy, isn't it? Did we just have a full moon like the last night or two?
Yeah, it was Friday. Friday we had a full moon
Friday.
here in the East Coast, anyways, in the East Coast United States. And yeah, we had a beautiful big full moon, and it was really nice. I went out and sat in it. One of the nights was like super cold, but I felt like that was like invigorating, like to bring it in, and like I don't know, there was like a transitional energy that sat with it in it for me. So
That's all I can feel these days is transitional energy. It's like
pivot.
everything is moving and shifting under our feet.
Yeah.
Things are getting very interesting too. I mean, all kinds of curveballs are getting thrown right now, and in ways that I did not expect. Like this timeline's getting weird. Am I the only one that's noticed this shit's getting really fucking weird lately?
You
Like
know,
seeing it's just all of this stuff. It's just strange the way it's coming together. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
no, that's all right, Laura. I didn't mean to cut you off either. It's interesting though, because you want to know something like, the prophecy was the end of the world as we know it, right? It wasn't ever the end of the world. It was as we know it. And
Yeah.
so, we were talking about this a couple of minutes ago. Spirit's been talking to me a lot about showing up vulnerable because as the world ends as we know it, that vulnerability and that ability to show up and be like, okay, so I used to like to be a planner and now planning doesn't work for me. So as I know it is dissolving away, and it's creating this foundational platform of trusting spirit, right? Because as spirit's showing up, spirit's like giving to us what we need right here, right now, right in the moment. And what we need in the next moment may not be what we thought we needed in that moment, And so that vulnerability, I think, is creating pliability and flexibility and ability to shift and change as needed, when needed. Um, I don't like it personally because I'm learning how to do it. But that's how it is, like it or not, here we are, as we know it is changing.
From a moment to moment basis.
Yeah.
Like that's why planning doesn't work anymore because it's like the plans change all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to foresee what's going to happen. I mean, most of the time, this is one of the reasons why I'm such a big history buff, is I've noticed the patterns in history, and you can actually kind of predict what's going to happen. But we're on uncharted territory now. Like, I don't think this has ever happened in human history before. With all of this, I mean, I realize we've had collapses, we've had changes, we've had upheavals, and all kinds of stuff. But I don't think we've had this deep of a spiritual awakening combined with all of those things. So
It's exciting though, I think. Like, I think it's so incredibly exciting. You know, It's an adventure, like, what's coming, what's showing up, but, like, I mean, right now on our earth, we have more souls concentrated on this planet than has ever existed before. Why
Yeah.
are we all showing up? What are we all showing up for? Uh, it's so exciting, like, it's the adventure of this lifetime, right? It's this lifetime adventure, and
Yes.
what
Absolutely.
yeah.
Michelle was just mentioning how a Rothschild died today, but a lot of people
Mm.
were saying, "Oh, well, his heir is going to be doing the same thing as him." But the funny thing is, if you look at Nathaniel Rothschild the third or whatever, his heir, he's posting artwork of angels, and he's talking about love and light, and he's, you know what I mean? Like, I think that their own family got infiltrated by star seeds. So that's the
Yeah.
thing. You have family bloodlines that are, you know, designed to pass on that corruption and that power and that authority. But then you also get monkey wrenches thrown into their plans just as much as ours. So seeing that today really, really put me in a good mood, actually.
I'm glad you brought that up in, like, in the term of design, right? Because when Karen's able to join us, we will be talking about human design, right?
Hmm.
I'm very curious about this. I'm not claiming to, like, have any knowledge or anything like that, but it's been coming up a lot in my awareness, and I'm noticing in other people's conversations. Um, you know, so, like, as we do entity removal and such, and we talking about ancestral history lines, right? I'm kind of curious about this, how that could be showing up in other people's lives, including the design to be of the darker side, because I'm watching people change. I'm watching that light infiltrate that darkness, and were they designed to do that, or was there something that tricked us into believing they were designed to be of the darkness? You know what I'm
They
saying?
are us,
Um,
technically,
yeah,
if you think about it, we are all a collective and they're part of the same collective.
yeah. So I wonder if, so, like, in human design, there's some spots in the chart and in, like, the centers and stuff. Like, I'll just share for a quick example. The root center is like a pressure center, and it's kind of like what it does, its energy is pressure center. So it gives us, like, the gas to move forward or to not move forward. And so, like, in my life, for an example, I have an open root center. And so I feel pressure to get everything done, clear my table off, clear my table off, clear my table off. My table's never clear because I'm constantly feeling the pressure of the external energy, right? So, like, taking it from lowest expression in my life prior to learning how to harness that energy, I would say, oh, that's god awful. That's bad. Like, this feels bad, right? And it would get me in real life, in real time situations where my energy wasn't received, or I wasn't receiving the energy well, however it played out. And that could be viewed in parentheses as, oh gosh, this is bad, right? And yet later on, so, like, after I learned about this particular pressure center, I started looking backwards and how many times in my life that was actually an appropriate brake pedal for me rather than a gas pedal to go. And so even though it was lower expression, I don't really like using negative, but, like, the lower expression of that energy, but that lower expression was the highest expression needed at that time,
Bingo.
and it was a brake
Exactly. We need
pedal.
the contrast. We do.
Yes. Yes. And so when we start talking, when we're talking about that particular member of the family or even other members of the family, like, we all volunteered, we all have to play a role and come in and experience and play those roles, right? And
Yes,
so I
absolutely.
wonder how much continuity in that line is actually lower, higher expressions of that. You know, it's the same thread.
It reminds me of what Dolores was explaining back in the day about the people who are like the bullies, the people who are here to be the Bond villains is the best way that I could put it. But then you find out in many cases that these souls are actually playing that role because souls have asked them to play that role.
To play
So
that
it's
role.
kind of like an actor. I'm thinking the first person that came into mind was Severus Snape, from Harry Potter. Everybody thought he was a bad guy. The
Yeah.
actor himself, one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. And then
Yeah.
at the end, it turns out that he was actually a good guy, and everybody the whole time was hating on him because they thought he was the baddie. So
Yeah.
really, it's hard to tell. Nothing is black and white, and you can't lump everybody into one category, and really, no matter who they are.
Yeah. And the lowest expression is fear. And the highest
Mm-hmm.
expression is love and authenticity, right? And
Yeah.
so they're all still a part of the same system. It's just where in the frequency. I think it's a beautiful container, honestly, because where in the system are you, where am I? Where somebody's awakening at, where have they been playing that role? It's like a living, breathing opportunity, right? It's exciting. It's
Absolutely.
so exciting.
And today, I did a couple people in the comments after that Rothschild post today were like, why are you guys celebrating and being, this is not nice. And they're right. I do agree with that, that it is one thing that we don't want to stoop to their level. But at the same time, it is also me being authentic and honest that I'm actually happy that he's gone. So it would be a lie for me to say that I'm sad about it. So I'm also living in my authenticity. We're all a work in progress is my point.
Yeah.
Like I'm in a weird place right now because I can see that he played an important role. I can see that we are all one and that we are all supposed to get along and work together, but I can also see the benefit of him not being here right now. So, or
Mhm.
at least to some degree that, some of the things that he was done are not going to be committed by him as
Mhm.
well as they have in the past. So it just is what it is. We all have to just feel out our emotions and ask ourselves, why am I feeling the way that I feel? And see if there's anything that we can learn from it.
Mhm. Most certainly. Most certainly.
Yes. Steph says he needs to go to the healing place. I think we all need to go to the healing place, Steph. We all have a lot of healing to do on a very deep level, I think. It's been a hard time on this planet for a long time. But
Right.
as they say, human design is one of those interesting things we can look at is to get a better insight as to why people are the way they are.
Oh, definitely. Human design is a system. It's still a system, it's not a formula. It's a blueprint for us to be able to really connect deeply into how we were designed to be in this particular time and space continuum in this lifetime, and really be able to sit back and see, once we dial into that energy, we start activating the centers, we start activating the gates, we start activating the circuitry that comes where the gates are connecting. And, it's really a beautiful thing for me. When human design came into my life, I, I was awakened. I was on my journey. I was awakening. I think we're always awakening, a little deeper, dialing in deeper, deeper, right? And it just gave me these profound roadmaps that, like, okay, something's going on here. I'm not exactly sure what it is. I go back to my body graph. I'm in there and I'm like, okay, I'm open. I'm ready to receive. Please show me what it is I'm to be receiving, what I'm to see. And inevitably, this is how it works for me. It works differently for everybody, right? Because human design is the science of differentiation. It is what allows us to expand as different beings and still be in a state of coherence because it's a grand plan, right? It's the blueprint, it's a blueprint, it's a map. And we're all paying attention to our own map, but the map is made in a bigger way of being able to be seen, and we can stay within that, right? And so, like, for me, it's interesting because, like, the other day, I was like, what is going on here? Like, I just have so many people who are being provocative and provoking. And, like, it was all different. None of it was wrong. It was all very differentiated points of view, opinions. Like, and I'm not going to lie, I was annoyed. I was a little bit frustrated. I was a little bit annoyed. I felt like I had all these porcupine quills kind of poking, not at me like I'm special, they're poking me, but I was being poked, right? And we all felt that way. So what happens? I go back and I'm asking the universe, what's going on? Like, what is happening? Because I don't normally receive energy that way. And I hear check human design. And I'm like, check human design. Okay. Well, one of the gates that we were in was the gate of provocation. We were passing through a planetary transit, and that planet had that gate open, and everybody was feeling it, right? It's about, usually we go through a gate every 6 days. And so I paid attention. Where are we at? Sure enough, as soon as that like passed through, I didn't feel provoked anymore. However, I did grow from all those porcupine quills kind of like, niggling at me. And it was like, oh, wow, that was a great experience. So, like, maybe one of the things we could talk with Karen about when she pops on is like solar weather, right? She gets on and she does these, like a couple, like at the beginning of February when we went to the Chinese New Year's, she went in and did the 2024 like solar weather, and she goes through in each quarter what's, according to human design, what's coming up. And so it was really great because one of the things that she talked about was pivoting. Are you ready to pivot? Because this year is all about standing on a pivot, and where you think you're at, you're going to pivot. And where you think you're at, you're going to pivot. And the more you learn how to balance and be on that pivot, the better off we'll be. Like all of us, right? Because that's what we're going through. We're all pivoting, like constant pivots, right? And it's so far, I mean, we're only at the end of February, but that's showed up to be so true in my world. Like, I have been learning how to balance on a pivot, you know. It's been crazy.
Every time we say pivot, I can hear Ross go, "Boom." I'm trying to get the couch up the stairs because it is kind of
It
because that
is,
is kind
right?
of what it feels like, It's not easy to do this. I mean, it sounds easy when you put it that way, but actually doing it is a whole other story.
Heck yeah. I have helped some elderly individuals transition, and as their health declined, and I did it on every level. Like, I did it for their physical level, spiritual, mental, the whole transition I've held for them. And, it's funny because I had a gentleman that ran a junkyard, and I was helping him. He's a rather tall, burly man, very, very momentous, right? And we got this bright idea to buy one of those pivots that are created for the elderly or people who are mobile challenged. It doesn't have to be elderly. I shouldn't label it that way, but people who have challenges in pivoting. Holy smokes, Laura. He stepped onto that. I stepped onto that. And I thank God we had the spirits that be with us, because we both pivoted, and I landed backwards on the bed. Phil landed on me, and we laid there and laughed until we couldn't laugh any longer. Right. So that's how I associate pivoting. Like, whoa, hold on. And if you keep doing it,
Yeeting yourself.
yeah, you'll get some equilibrium eventually, right? But the more you tighten up or resist, it's going to hurt you. It could be hurtful, it could be difficult, you can close down. But the more you like start to really just, okay, the more we start to move in with the flow that I think is incoming more and more every day, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And what a wild ride it is lately, huh?
Well, yep.
It's really cool that even the weather can actually be checked out with this. I mean, because that is also changing on a moment to moment notice. I don't know if you guys saw, but there's been some really weird weather anomalies that have happened.
Mhm.
In China, the weather dropped by 70 degrees in 10 minutes. It went down to below 50, and thousands of water birds froze instantaneously to the water.
Mm.
Weird, weird stuff happening. I
Mhm.
mean, it almost sounds like it's in a movie. And so it is good to get a little insight maybe from her as to what the heck is going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited. She will be joining us in about 8 more minutes. So yeah, that'll
Oh,
be exciting. So human design can take you like when it finds you and it's like drawing you in, honestly, it's like buckle up buttercup because there are so many rabbit holes to explore
yeah.
and investigate in human design. So far in my journey, I have been invited into it's really interesting. So I have a gate 44, and that gate is um it's about identifying patterns, repeating patterns, things that just keep repeating. And it brings you some seriously uncanny ability to smell what's up, which I never knew. I always knew, yeah, I could always smell. I was like, that don't smell right. But now that I know that, it's like it's within that gate, right? And I'm like, okay, I trust this every single time. No matter what on the external is showing up, I'm like, that don't smell right. It doesn't smell right to me. Okay. And so that's the gate 44. And that's in the spleen center. And the spleen center is about existence. It's about existence. It's about the spleen tells us in a split second, yes, you're going to stay alive or no, you're not, period. All the gates in there have fears attached to them at lower vibration, as well as higher expression of it. And so my gate 44 used to keep me stuck in that lower vibration of repeating patterns. I was stuck in these repeating patterns and I just felt like I was in a traffic circle. Like, please let me out. I can see all these roads to get out of the circle, but I just kept being in it. Right. And now I know, like now I sense it and I see it, and that's really exciting. So one of the things about gate 44 for me that's been super exciting, and this is where my human design, where I've chosen to find grace in it at the moment. When I started that pathway, my son also got burned, seriously, severely burned, where we didn't know if he would live or pass with it. And so at that point in time where the two merged at the same time together. And so what that did was kept me at a surface level. I'm a 1-3 profile in human design. That's the investigating martyr. We love to investigate to the like 92nd degree. And then in the third line, we're going to do everything that doesn't work in order to get to the thing that works the best. And then we're going to share it with everybody. Like, here, trust me, I've tried everything. Right.
It
And
sounds
so
a lot like me, I must admit. I have to
it's,
find out.
do you have your chart? Do you have your
Not with
body
me
yet?
now. I don't remember. I don't remember what mine said actually. I could check mine out really quick.
Yeah,
What
if you got
website do
it,
you usually use?
When Karen comes, if you can pull it, maybe we'll touch on it a little bit.
Which site do you prefer? The human design, is there one for?
Um, Me personally, I use Genetic Matrix. Karen has one that she uses as well. And to be honest with you, I probably should, I mean, just be kind of putting in that plug. But honestly, I use Genetic Matrix because that's the one that I learned how to use. And Michelle House is saying that Karen's is great. Perhaps, Michelle, do you happen to have the link to that? Because
Gee, I was
I
gonna
did
say,
not.
do you have the link for that? Because I'll do mine really quick here while
Yeah, that would
she's
be great. I could go look it up, but I'm on my laptop and it's a little bit harder to do that for me. But anyways, like when they merged together with that, one of the interesting things for me that happened was even though I love to go super deep, and even though I love like to do all this stuff that I was just talking about, so using the science of differentiation in its highest form for me, what that allowed me to do was stay very surface level. So one of the things about gate 44 is it's kind of like the salesperson. Like I'm one of the first things you'll see. Like I'm really good at being one of the very first things that you see. And I might welcome you in, hey, how are you? And I really am fantastic at that. I love to
There
share
you are.
resources. I love to be the gatekeeper. I love to like open the gate, come on in. And then I love to pass people to other people where their soul's going to flourish, right? And so when I learned that about myself and that that's my conscious sun at its best, I was like, oh, this is beautiful. So what it did was that differentiation between me being a 1-3 and having to be super, super deep, because I also have a stellium in Scorpio. I have 6 planets in Scorpio. Scorpio likes to be deep, right? Like we like to
Yeah.
be deep.
Your waters run very deep.
Oh, my water runs. That's very deep. And so like that gate though gave me so much freedom to differentiate myself from what I have known myself into what another level of myself is, right? And so now I just enjoy really truly being the gatekeeper. And I'm like, "Hey, hi, come on in," and being able to see your patterns, and we're going to work together with them. And I have all these beautiful people, and people, I'm not saying to use people, I'm just saying people are resources. There's such beauty in what everybody brings, that differentiation. It's just like, hey, here is a whole community of wonderful people. This is what their gifts are. This is their highest expressions of who they are. And I love that. I love that for all of us. The science of differentiation. It has changed my life in such a short time. It has given me so much permission to just be me and you to be you, and to see the differences as a beautiful part of authentication and love rather than separation and division. It's been so beautiful. So beautiful.
It's so exciting to see how things are going to unfold. Oh, Karen's here. Hi,
Yay.
Karen. One second, let me in. There she is.
Hi, how are
Karen.
you?
Hey, Karen.
Thank you for being so flexible. I appreciate it. I was afraid I was not going to make it here on time at noon straight up. So
It's
thank
okay.
you.
That's totally okay. Thank you very much. Nan's just been, regaling us with a little bit of a chit chat about human design.
Oh, cool. Thank you. She's good at it. She knows a lot.
Yes, exactly.
I was just
just on
sharing.
your website a second ago, quantumhumandesign.com. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. I think I just did mine. I'm opening it now, but I haven't done this before. I'm a complete noob to this, so please forgive
That's
me
wild.
for.
Okay.
Yeah, I hardly know anything. We've only been hearing about this as in the last couple of weeks, and I have had a guest on. Nan's had a very good help with explaining it for me. But if you don't mind starting out for us newbies, just explaining the basics.
I can do that. Okay. Do you want to do that now?
Perfect. Yeah, let's.
Okay. Well, human design is a synthesis of Eastern and Western astrology, the Chinese I Ching, the Hindu chakra system, Judaic Kabbalah, and quantum physics. So basically what it does based on your birthday, birth time, and birthplace, just like you would with traditional astrology, it spits out a chart. The chart that you get is very similar to if you ever like remodel your kitchen or you remodel your house, you have electrical wiring and there's maps for electrical wiring. It's really just a map for your electrical hardwiring. So it teaches you about how you operate in the world, how you use energy in the world, most importantly, how to optimize your energy and how to make good, effective decisions so that you start making choices that bring you back into alignment with your authentic self.
Wonderful. Wow. There's a lot to absorb there. Fantastic. How did you get into this work?
That's a very long story because I've been doing it for a long time. But I'll say in 1999, I was a homeschooling mom of 4. I had 4 little kids in suburban Texas. And my husband at the time went on a spiritual retreat to Sedona, Arizona. And he came back and he brought a chart, a human design chart, and he showed it to me. And I looked at it, and something happened in that chart when I saw it. It just like, it's almost like a bell went off in my soul. And when I looked at that chart, I just instantly knew that I had to study everything I could about it. And so we made the decision to put our house on the market. We sold it in 2 weeks. We packed up the kids, and at that time we just only had a cat. We packed up the kids and the cat and moved from Texas to Sedona, Arizona. And when we got there, my youngest son, who was 3 at the time, I think, had an ear infection. And so I took him to the pediatrician. And when I came out from the pediatrician's office, here's this kid on my hip. Across the hallway from the pediatrician's office was an office door. There was another office over there. And on the door was the human design chart. And I thought, oh, well, I'm just going to go in here and see what this is. And so I opened the door to this office, and there was a big desk and a little woman sitting behind the desk. And she said to me, oh, did you come for the job? And I said, yes, I did. And so she hired me right there on the spot. And it turns out that was the headquarters for Human Design in America, Human Design America at the time. And I got to work for Human Design America and study all of the original materials from the creator, Ra Uru Hu, and actually got to learn directly from Ra Uru Hu. And the rest, as they say, is history.
Awesome.
Karen,
that's amazing.
I want to jump. Oops, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just wanted to jump in for just a second because I think it's so exciting that Karen was brought in by taking her child to the doctor, right? Mm-hmm. And human design was originally talked about being for the children, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. And so I just wanted to make that little connection, how interesting it is that Karen is moving along in her everyday life and taking care of her children, which she's a wonderful mom, wonderful grandmother, and, doing the deal for her children as a mother, and enter the design, enter mm-hmm. human design via the child. Right.
That's interesting. I'd never put that together before, Nan. That's a very interesting observation. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Well, that was clearly, a divine appointment that you had there that day.
Yes, it was.
Literally.
Yeah. So for people who are new to this, who are just getting there's a couple people who are, I'm sure, in the comments right now doing their own chart as we speak. I just did mine as well. Uh-huh. I'm just curious as to where do you even start when looking at your chart? What is the first thing you look at?
So the chart is, and this is kind of how I like to teach it, the chart is a layered storytelling tool more than anything. It's a tool that helps you systematically really kind of assess the story you tell yourself in the world about who you are and how you are. That chart has layers. And so if I was going to make a pyramid out of the different layers in the chart, the base layer of the chart would be your type. So in human design, there are 5 energy types. Those types are kind of like, I like to think of the analogy of your type is the main character in your story. So those 5 energy types each have a different purpose. They have a different hardwiring. They have a different way of making decisions and a different way of really dropping into the body to sort of feel like, what is the next right step for me?
Interesting. Last week I checked myself and I got manifestor generator, but now on yours I'm getting alchemist. What are the differences?
Well, you should stay the same across all the software. So I would definitely just make sure that the entering in the time and the
my emotional theme on both was frustration. So
yeah, that would stay the same. That would definitely stay the same. But do run it again and just make sure you're entering the information correctly, because you should have the same type across the software.
It was from a different website. It was from somebody else a couple weeks ago. So it may just be. We'll stick with this. What is an alchemist then, if you don't mind explaining?
So an alchemist is one of the 5 types, and an alchemist is actually what we call the evolved name. So if you think of, here's the thing that's also really important to understand about human design. The purpose of human design ultimately is to heal the disconnect between your inner compass, your wisdom, the wisdom of the body, And it's really a system, a way of retraining yourself to trust yourself. And so when we look at the 5 types, each type has a decision-making strategy, a different unique way of making a decision. And that unique way of making a decision has, first and foremost, the job, if you will, the goal of getting you back into your body. The generator, which is the baseline of the type, is a person who has to learn to drop into a trusting relationship with the universe. So most generators or most alchemists have to first start by learning to trust the universe again. We start off trusting the universe, and then we're trained. Oh, you need to use your mind. You need to be reasonable. You have to follow this formula for success. You have to go to college. You have to make sure you work hard and save all your money. We have these formulas that we're trained to follow. And what happens oftentimes over the course of our lives is we lose connection with our own inner sense of what's right and what's wrong for us. For the generator types, to get back in touch with your baseline, you have what's called the sacral center. You actually have a gut level motor inside of your body. It's your gut level feeling that actually works without words. It actually makes 2 sounds. The sounds that your motor makes, your truth makes, is uh-huh and uh-uh. So those are sounds that if you are a generator type, and this is true if you're a manifesting generator as well, those sounds actually are like a key, and they're a key that actually turns on an energy or a motor inside your gut that gets you back in touch with that internal sense or that internal feeling of what feels right and good and what doesn't. Because most of us have forgotten how to follow what feels right and good, which to me is just hilarious. Like, I can't tell you, most of my coaching work is done convincing people, yeah, it's actually okay to follow what feels right. It is really, you can do this, right? And so as a generator type, one of the things that you have to do to heal that disconnect that comes from being conditioned, going out into the world and learning against yourself, is getting back in touch with that inner wisdom that is your sacral sounds, your sacral authority, that gut level feeling. And so the first step for generator types is to learn to explore the world, feel their way into the world, and start following the things that feel like an right? That feel like a yes, but not a verbal yes, a gut level, nonverbal yes. And you want to keep it nonverbal, because you don't want to start engaging with the head, with the words in your head, because as soon as you do, then you start to think and you start discounting that gut level feeling. As a generator type, your job in the world is actually to become an expert. You are here to become an expert at being a human, and to learn how to really become an expert in the learning process, in the mastery process, if you will. So generators have what we call a stair-step learning curve. So if you're a generator, and let's say you get that, I want to go do this thing. You get that yes expression. You start to do whatever that thing might be. And in the beginning, you'll have this initial surge in mastery. So in the beginning, whenever you start something new, you have this sort of, ooh, this feels great. I'm doing it. It's awesome. I'm doing really well at it. That's normal. So if you started to learn to play tennis, you might go take lessons. In the first couple of weeks, you'd be like, I hit the ball. I've got a good serve. I've got the hang of this. And what happens for the generators, and this is a normal part of the learning process, is that eventually you're going to hit a plateau. It won't matter how many times you go back to tennis lessons, how much you practice. It won't matter what you do. You're going to sit on this plateau. Now, that plateau has a very important function in your cultivating your own expertise and your ability to learn and become masterful over the world. When we sit on plateaus as generators, we're building energy. We're integrating. We're oftentimes incubating. We're preparing for what's next. When we hit those plateaus, though, what often happens is we start to feel, and you just talked about this, we start to feel frustrated, right? Nothing's moving fast enough. I'm practicing and doing all this work, and I'm not having a breakthrough of any kind, and now I'm stuck, right? And what oftentimes happens for generators when they don't understand that part about themselves is that's when they start to quit. And they go through cycles of starting something new and then getting through that first surge in mastery and hitting that plateau and then quitting, and starting something new and hitting that surge in mastery and then hitting that plateau and quitting. And they'll get into this cycle of starting and quitting and starting and quitting. And what they'll feel is not only just frustration, but they'll have this deep sense of, I'm meant for more. I'm supposed to be doing more than what I'm doing. I have all this untapped, unfulfilled potential, and I can't break free from this stuck place. And part of what the generator has to learn is how to actually really interpret that stuck place. Most of us quit because we're trained, oh, frustration is bad and therefore we should quit. But really what we have to do is really learn to read our inner wisdom, our inner voice, that gut level voice, because when we sit on those plateaus as generators, we have a choice. And that choice is to learn to sit with it and be okay with the frustration and allow it and integrate it and say, okay, I'm feeling frustration. This is obviously a sign of momentum building. And then to wait out that frustration until the next surge in mastery, that next level in your stair-step learning curve. Or if it is correct to quit, and sometimes it is, that you respond to something to quit towards. So you literally have to have, again, that gut level response that, I don't need to stick with this anymore. I learned everything I'm supposed to learn from this particular experience. Time to get off this plateau and go find that other next thing I'm supposed to be learning or growing into.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm smiling, Karen, because we did a really great introduction, because we were really talking about that prior to you joining us, about how quantum human design really allows us to use differentiation. Mm-hmm. And how it really allows us to be the beautiful, shiny stars that we are, in following the energy, rather than thinking that, like, following the conditioning and following what we think we know about ourselves versus what we are internally. Mm-hmm. And how when you become familiar with your blueprint, that, like, there's activations that occur, right? And, like, a little bit like that circuitry you talked about, like, we might not be aware that there's a light switch here. Mm-hmm. We think it's darkness, and we think that there's something wrong and there's darkness, but then we find the switch and all of a sudden this room lights up, and wow, I've got areas I didn't know I had areas in. Mm-hmm. And it gives us that permission to just shine who we are, mm-hmm. And be, and just to be, really.
Well, I think the other thing that it does, I love that you say it gives you permission, because I do find that probably hands down, that's the piece that I hear from people the most, that when they get a human design reading, they feel seen. They oftentimes feel like that secret part of themselves that they really, they've sensed, they've known that potential, but they've never been really able to articulate it. That part gets, mm-hmm. And they do get permission. You get permission by learning about who you are and how you are. And it moves you into this, I think, really profound place of becoming more self-accepting, of recognizing, for example, I'm the kind of person who tends to get frustrated, and that's okay. That's part of how mm-hmm. I am. And that's not a problem. There's nothing wrong with me. I understand what that frustration means, what that looks like. I understand now how to really interpret that correctly. And it doesn't become this problematic part of my personality that I get judged for all the time, because people think I quit everything because I'm frustrated, or I'm angry, mm-hmm. or I'm bitter, or whatever emotional theme you might have, depending on your type.
Yeah.
Well, the shadow work is so important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Identifying those triggers.
I do want to jump over into the chats for a minute, because a while ago, I'm not even going to attempt the name because I feel like I won't be able to respect it and say it well enough. But there was a question earlier in the chats about what if you don't know your birth time. Mm-hmm. My answer is astrocartography, correct? Do you know any other ways, Karen or Laura? Because
it's a question that comes up a lot, and I certainly would say, muscle testing is a good way to figure it out. In human design, which is not as picky, if you will, as astrology, you can't. There's often a little bit of wiggle room.
A wiggle room, yeah.
If you know, not always, but if you know, like, you were born in the morning or in the evening, you can kind of start with that. I have students who use pendulums, and they'll use a pendulum to gauge birth time. But really what you probably would do best to do is to get somebody to give you a reading who knows how to rectify a chart. There are, based on your unique chart and the different times of the day that you were born, or days that you were born in some cases, there are good questions that a good specialist will know to ask that can help make sure that that chart is a little more accurate.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I was pretty sure, but I just wanted to double check because there's been a couple of ways that I've used when I'm running a chart, especially if they do know morning or night. Because I mean, you can run a couple of charts,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and if nothing's changing, you're pretty good, you know,
To go back to the questions, Laura wants to know, what is the projector's lesson in life?
I love projectors. So projectors are a type, one of the 5 types in human design. The projector, it's about 20% of the population. The job or the role of the projector is to manage and guide the rest of us. So I'm sorry, that's a hard job. And it's a really interesting, and I think actually evolutionarily speaking, in terms of where we are with the shift, the projector has the biggest role right now, because one of the things that a projector does is a projector energetically manages potential, meaning when you're a projector, you know things about people's potential, you know things about the potential of the planet, the potential of humanity. And so a lot of what you're doing is working on an energetic level to manage that potential, right? To hold it in place, to anchor the grid of possibility in the human story. And oftentimes we interpret that as doing nothing. That projectors are laying on the couch doing nothing, but actually, no matter what, whenever you are, if you're a projector, you're doing an important part of holding this entire story together. The projector has a couple of different challenges. The first challenge for the projector is realizing that even though you can manage everyone, and you absolutely can, you know what people need to do, you know what everybody needs to do, that actually your job in the world is not to manage everyone. That you were born basically to take care of a specific group of people. And those people are the people who get you. Those are the people who see your value. And most importantly, those are the people who are going to ask you for your insights and your guidance. Because if they're not asking you, that's kind of the tell. Are these my people or not? If they're not asking you and you're dropping this exquisite wisdom in front of people who are not your people, you're going to end up wasting your energy trying to manage and guide people who aren't hearing you, who aren't going to value you. And you run the risk at that point of actually burning yourself out, or actually hurting your heart, like not physically, but hurting your own sense of self-worth, because it does not feel good when you're out there dropping these pearls of wisdom to people that you know could completely transform their lives, and they're not hearing you, or they're resisting you, or they're backing away from you. So you have to learn to wait for recognition, invitation, and attention to know that when it's time for you to share what you have to share, you're with the right people, because being with the right people is important. The other challenge for the projector type is that you're not hardwired the same way as the other types. So you don't have the same sustainable quality of energy, meaning you're not here to work in the traditional way that we think of as working. So you're not here to work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, or to necessarily do a really heavy lifting job. You might, some projectors do have that as part of their role, but very few do. That really your gift, your strength is in your capacity to manage, to guide, to give people the information that they need, and not to necessarily do the heavy lifting. But if you because you don't work that way, you have to learn how to regulate your energy so that you don't burn out, because projectors are very vulnerable to burning out if they're pushing too hard, or they're trying to do all the work, because they can see the potential, right? And so part of your mantra has to be, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And also make sure that whatever it is you are doing, you're doing it with people who really get your value, because if they're not, then you're not with the right people, and you deserve better.
Yes. Lisa asked, I am an alchemist generator. What does that mean?
So that's what I just talked about before, when we talked about this at the beginning, that is a generator. You're here to become an expert at learning. You are here to you have that stair-step learning curve. And if you're not careful, you can get into those cycles of frustration and quitting, and frustration and quitting.
Yes. But does it, when you add it to another, that's why I was just curious, because, many of us it's like being on the cusp between two signs is the kind of vibe that I'm getting. Is it similar to that where you have multiple traits?
So you are in the version of the chart that you ran, you are a manifesting generator, which is actually a distinctly different type. So there are 5 types. There's a manifester, a generator, a manifesting generator, a projector, and a reflector. So the manifesting generator is a hybrid type. You're the only hybrid type. The other types are all pure types. And so you'll have elements of the manifester in your personality as well as the generator in your personality.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yes. I see that now because I'm looking at my chart now. It says alchemist generator. Then it says strategy to respond generator. So I'm guessing that's part of. Okay. I got you now. Okay. When it says that you're a number, because it says for 5, how do you interpret that?
I'm sorry, Laura, you may have cut out there for just a second.
No, it's okay. Sorry. I'm just reading. It says profile 5/1 visionary leader / resource. I'm just curious as to what that means.
So when we look at the chart, as I said, when we look at the chart as a storytelling tool, that story has lots and lots of layers and they're unique. That they really, the synthesis of all those layers is really what makes you who you are. So your type is the main character in the story. The profiles, which is the next level in that layer of the stories, the profiles are really the personality traits, the quirks, and the purpose of your main character. So the profiles, there are 12 profiles. They look like fractions on your chart. The 5/1, the visionary leader resource, is a profile that has a role, first of all, of seeing the potential, seeing people's potential and being able to lead people into the fulfillment of that potential. The 1 being the resource means that you are curious, you're investigative, you want to learn and study. And part of your leadership is that you build the foundation of information that you use to help yourself lead others. So when you're leading people, you're not just leading them into the potential, you're giving them the information that they need to be able to trust you and to trust in their own experience of fulfilling the potential of the vision that you hold.
Wow. Okay. So
that's that one that we talked about.
Yes.
One deep.
Interesting. Okay. Just reading through some of the comments here.
Chantal is saying even split the sessions, but I'm unsure what that means. Could you get a little bit more clarity?
Yeah, she's asking. She's asking for SRT clearings today. You've got 12 people ahead of you, love. But I'll help you later. I will respond.
Okay, sorry, I only saw the bottom part.
No, it's okay. She's just she's asking for a clearing. That's all.
Yeah, I got you. I saw it afterwards.
Yes. So, can you give a little insight into your book that you wrote? Because I see that you are a published author, Karen.
Well, I've written about 23 books, but
wow.
But
I didn't know that.
Most of them are about human design. So I wrote my first human design book, Understanding Human Design. It came out in 2011 or 2012. I can't remember now because that was a long time ago. That is a book that's been translated into 10 different languages. It is a book that really is just a basic overview of traditional human design. Along the way since then, I've written a lot of other books about human design, including my most recent book, which is the Human Design Workbook, which is a pretty easy to understand sort of, it's kind of like a tab Mad Libs. Do you remember those? Maybe you don't remember those because you're a lot younger than me, but Nan remembers them.
I do. I do.
So it's kind of a fill in the blank journey that you can go through with your chart that helps you craft your life purpose statement, a mission statement, using the different parts of your story, the different parts of your chart. It helps you really interpret all those different layers so that you can gain back control over the story you tell yourself in the world about who you are.
So I want to jump in for just a brief second. Speaking of books and Karen's, she also has the Encyclopedia of Quantum Human Design, which is a book that I love and often is somewhere's found, yes, very close to me. But I got to tell you a funny story. Mine disappeared. Literally into thin air. I have been nowheres that book could have gone. My husband and I have torn every nook and cranny to places that you couldn't even really find a book, but my mind needed to be satisfied. And that book has disappeared, period, gone, nowheres, can't find it. I suspect it may be like some of the other things that have disappeared in my home and then reappeared in the exact same space that I have set that. But I just had to tell you that funny story while you were talking about her books. I believe that, Steph. I do believe that the liminal invisible space is
It
at
went to
Pluto
5D ahead of us.
well, I'm telling you, we're talking about quantum. We are sending it ahead, right? Somebody's on our side using Karen's encyclopedia. Just saying.
I would hope that in the quantum they knew it already, but okay.
I know, I'm just being facetious.
Sorry,
but, you know.
Now be careful when you write quantum on your books now, you know.
I'm giving a cheap plug to humans, Karen, the human form.
Well, I hope it turns up. I hope whoever disappeared it reappears it. So.
They usually do. It's just, it was so interesting because like I had pulled it out right before we talked on the 22nd. And I know where I put it, like literally know where I put it. Nobody's been in our home since before or after that. And like, I can't wait to see what happens. It's always taking us somewheres when things like this happen. So I just thought I'd share a little fun about your book.
Oh, awesome.
Now she needs a new copy, Karen.
I've already got it in my head.
That would be wonderful. Till mine shows up and
Brooke,
then I'll pass
Brooke had
mine
a
to
good
Laura.
question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Could you share your favorite books for human design to help with understanding my children?
Your children.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So April Porter, that's AYPRIL Porter, PORTER, has written a book called Parenting the Child You Have. That is a human design parenting book, and it's amazing. It's so go run and get April's book. It's a great, great book. And really, she just published, like I think about 3 or 4 weeks ago, she also published a workbook that goes with it as well. So great set of books to get for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Thank
for
you
anyone listening, like outside of the scope, like on Divinate or with Laura, if Laura doesn't mind, I haven't asked her this, but I'm assuming we're all good to roll. Like we have a plethora of resources, and the quantum human design community, I think Karen would agree with me, is like the most beautiful group of people that are resources in so many ways and places. And if you ever need, like I'm really big about like really holding space for my community. I'm tribal, and I know the importance that when we all work together, our answers and our needs are met. And if you have questions, please don't ever hesitate to jump on and ask, because I would love nothing better than to be that gate holder for all of us within it. Because I've just seen, I know it's a system and I know it's one system, but I have seen so many lives transformed that I get emotional, because it's just so beautiful to watch somebody, even if you're not struggling, like if you're just in this place and then you're questioning, or you feel the movement come in and you know something's there for you or others, and just being able to hold that for them and watch their whole lives just become the next step. You know, there's such a beauty in that. Such a beauty.
Well, I think the thing is, you say it's a system, and I would say it is a system, but it is like an anti-system system. And that's a very interesting system, because the goal of human design is to get you to trust yourself, to reconnect with the divine within you, that wisdom, that compass that is so inherent in your natural being. And what that means is that human design, even if you say, I don't like this, it's weird, that's actually you living your human design. That it's a system that teaches you to follow your own authority. And if you're following your own authority and you're like, I don't resonate with this, or if there's parts of the system you don't resonate with, or there's pieces that you're like, this is amazing, but I hate this stuff over here, it's all correct, because it's not about the system. It's really such a fascinating system to be in, because you're not supposed to follow it dogmatically. It's really an invitation for you to explore yourself. And it's a system that's not exclusionary. It integrates with anything. I always like to think of it, it's not the who of who you are, it's the how of who you are. And there's so many brilliant, beautiful systems out there that teach us who we are, but they don't always tell us how we are. And human design really integrates that how piece into the who.
Yep. I love it because Laura's drinking out of a cup that says I am sovereign.
Yes.
And that's exactly what it is. I am sovereign. And I am me and you are you. That's why I'm always saying this is a system of differentiation, because like I'm sovereign, you're sovereign. And it gives us all like that, I can't remember exactly, Karen. I apologize, but you're always saying that we're a once in a lifetime
cosmic event.
event. And that's so true. Like we are. And like, it's so time for us to all shine so that light is together. And it's through differentiation that we come together. And I love that. I just love that. Like I just can't get enough of it, to be honest with you. I gotta be addicted to something. This isn't too bad. Yeah. It's just been amazing. I was gonna just ask you a question about
wanted to hear about the weather thing. Remember, she were talking about
yes. I was gonna go into that. We were talking about
it's sunny.
We were talking about solar weather before you came in, and how the solar flares have been like kicking everybody's butt. But we were talking about your quantum forecast for 2024 is what we were talking about. And we were talking about how pivot seems to be super important information at this point in everyone's life that we were talking about. And I mentioned that you come in usually at the beginning of the year and talk about the upcoming solar weather and the astrological weather and all of that it encompasses. So I said we should probably ask her when she shows up if she'd like to talk about that for a minute, seeing
I almost forgot about it too. I'm so glad you reminded me.
And I actually do that every month too on Facebook.
Oh, okay.
A monthly update as well. So what you want to know about 2024?
Just in general, like I mean, we were rolling with it to see what showed up, and that did show up. So I thought, okay, we'll roll with that. Like, we're leading into Story Lab for you, and we're leading into
So I think that 2024 is a very I have to take a bigger step back and say in human design, there's a story of prediction, if you will, that's built into the material. So the human design system is a channeled system. It's received wisdom. And when the founder of the system, whose name was Ra Uru, received the information, he was told that we're in the middle of a big shift. And this was in 1987, right? So here we are, 2024. And he was told that the shift would solidify, if you will, would really begin to stabilize in 2027. And that what is really happening as part of the shift is that the chart itself, our hardwiring, is changing. Now, it's not the first time that's happened. That the chart also changed in 1787. And before people get like all prepper about it, and it's like, wait a minute, time out. The last time the chart shifted, we didn't have an apocalypse. We're not at that end of the world. We're just in a maturing of the human story and the themes of the human story. And really, when you start to look at it historically, the shift, if you will, that we've been in probably for about 100 to 120 years. And I really think that, especially when we look at art and we look at science, we start to see the threads of the shift in consciousness through art and science, usually in the beginning, but as it integrates into the mainstream. So what we saw in the late 1800s was the birth of quantum physics being recognized as an official science. And we saw kind of hand in hand with that, we saw modernism, and we saw, all of these artists who were basically playing with perception, right? Who were, looking at how do we see art and color and form. And, what quantum physics teaches us is that expectation, or the meanings we have about parts of our story, expectation is how we perceive reality. The brain is just a computer that's processing multiple possibilities through the lens of the meanings that we tell in the stories that we tell ourselves in the world about who we are and how we are. And really what the shift in the human design chart shows us is that the way in which we create, which, up until the last 100 years or so has been about pushing and forcing and using your will and building on the material plane, that the way in which you create is changing, that we're literally on the cusp of a creative revolution. And part of what's shifting and changing is that we are beginning to understand that stories and emotions and the frequencies generated by emotions, the electrical frequencies, the vibrational frequencies generated by emotions and meaning, calibrate us into highly creative states. So it calibrates us into a state of coherence, or if those stories are not so great, a state of non-coherence where we have a stress response, right? Where we go into fear, or we go into low-grade fight or flight and reactivity. And that part of what we're doing is we are untangling ourselves out of old human stories right now especially. And that untangling is really just a symptom of us being at the edge of the potential of the growth of the systems that we've built so far. So anything in the world right now, this is the astrology of right now, anything in the world that has the word system associated with it, so the government system, the healthcare system, the education system, anything that has the word system associated with it is subject to collapse. Now, does that mean it has to be cataclysmic and horrific? No, we can take it down very peacefully if we choose to, as long as we don't resist it, right? And we get creative with it. But we've reached the outer edges of those systems. We can't grow anymore with the amount of people and with the knowledge that we have. We've reached that edge. And whenever we outgrow a cycle, which is where we are, we always, of course, are simultaneously growing a new cycle. And what's really up for us on a planetary level is we're at this X mark, right? Where the old systems are going away and new systems are birthing. And that X mark is tricky.
Mm-hmm.
Because in that X mark, you've got half of the people on the planet, or maybe a third of the people on the planet, who are saying, hey, wait, time out. Let's go back to how things used to be, right? This is conservatism. So we have this, this orthodoxy and conservatism. And it's not just here in America. It's all over the world, right? We have these people who are like, wait a minute, we don't want to change anything. We don't want to go back to how things used to be. On the other side of it, you have people who are like, let's change everything. And they're like basically throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And they're not looking at, wait, time out. If we're going to do that, do we know for sure that what we're doing is actually going to work? Do we have, do we know? Do we trust it? Have we experimented with it? And then somewhere in the middle, we have most of us, and we're sort of sitting in the space saying, well, we know we can't go back. And yes, we need to go forward. And if we're going to do it in a way that's going to maximize the benefits for the greater good, we have to do it in a way where we're bringing with us what we know already works, and we're willing to experiment and explore and innovate around what's next. And that point in the evolution that we're in can feel like crisis. It can feel very divisive and like everybody's against everybody. And it makes the journey of growth a little bit challenging. And so when we look at 2024, where we are right now we're really in like the heat of this X mark on the chart, where we have a group of people who don't want to move forward, who want to go back. We have a group of people who want to go forward, but they're not really making sure that where we're headed is where we should be headed. And a group of people in the middle going, wait, you guys, let's try to figure out a way to do this that works for everyone. And certainly when we're in this kind of a disruptive cycle, the thing that we have to be prepared for is the unexpected. And it's hard to be prepared for the unexpected, right? Because it's unexpected. And so as Nan was saying, the theme this year is pivot, of really learning to just, navigate the landscape with resilience, with fluidity, and with the ability to say, okay, that's not working. What's next, right? And to stay in this flow of, okay, change is happening. And really the rooted point that gives us the strength and the power to be resilient is self-awareness, right? It goes back to knowing, okay, I can trust my own ability to sense and know and feel what is truth, right? What is my truth? What is the truth? Because truth is very malleable and mutable right now. If you log onto the internet, how do you actually know what's true and what's not? And this isn't, again, I'm not being political. I'm saying it's all over.
Discernment with your intuition, that really is all you got these days.
Exactly. And that intuition means you got to be connected to your body. You got to have all, as you just said, Laura, all your shadow stuff has got to be cleared away.
You got to be grounded.
Yeah, you got to be grounded. And if you haven't done, if you haven't really cleaned up your story, if you've got old stuff that you're reacting to, you run the risk of either going too far this way or too far this way without being, deeply intentional with what you're building. Because if we're still trying to prove our value as our motivation and drive, that gets you into a lot of trouble sometimes. And it certainly takes you away from you doing what's right and aligned for you because it's right and aligned for you, not because you have some hidden agenda about needing to be right or needing to prove your value or needing to be the next one in charge because you felt disempowered by what happened before. We have to be untangling ourselves out of our shadows. We have to be disentangling ourselves from our ancestral conditioning and all those old outdated contracts that we've been making over the last hundreds of years around being victim and victimizer. And we have to build our faith and our strength and our own capacity to create by virtue of knowing how to tell stories, how to intentionally build what's next, and to do it with the intention of creating sustainability, equitability, justice, abundance,
personal responsibility,
and peace.
Accountability. Yeah. All of these things. We've got a lot of homework to do.
Well, I would say we do and we don't, because excuse me, I'm old enough to remember life before the movie The Secret. Life when we were getting Abraham Hicks cassettes, right? This whole conversation, right? Oh no, don't laugh, Nan. You get it.
No, I remember too. I'm enjoying.
This whole conversation, the word manifesting. Many of you don't know, like in 2000, nobody knew what that word meant. Nobody knew what manifesting was.
Now it's all over TikTok.
Right? I mean, now I know you get on every little song is about manifesting and aligning. It's like, yeah, that's new. That's all new.
Those seeds you planted, they sure sprouted, didn't they?
That's so.
I had to laugh the other day because somebody said to me, hey, do you remember that movie, The Secret? And I'm like, mm-hmm. And they're like, well, like, did you participate? Like, so this has kind of funny that The Secret came up again, because I went to Chicago and did this workshop, and James Ray tended to prove himself controversial throughout the whole thing, even during it, right? And it's interesting because, like, I think he's a perfect example of why we need to be intentional in what we create, listening to our authorities and following, because, some tragic events happened following that thread through, and like really had people have been rooted in their own sensing, and rather than allowing a leader to like guide, and that's definitely totally different than a projector's guidance. I'm not saying that, but like, so much could be brought into intentional alignment and manifesting rather than, in this particular example, suffering the consequence. And
totally. So, I think we should probably remind people, because James Ray was a thought leader in, I think, 2008, 2008, who took a bunch of people to Sedona, Arizona, actually on a property that was owned by friends of mine, and had a sweat lodge. And actually several people died in the sweat lodge because they hadn't constructed the sweat lodge properly, and people were begging to leave. And he was telling them, you can't leave. It's just your resistance. And they died. And then, I think the real interesting point of the story, and I think you're absolutely right, Nan, is that, it was there were a lot of people that were sensing and feeling, hey, this isn't working. I'm not well, or that, I feel like I need to get out of the sweat lodge. And they were asking to leave. And he was saying, no, it's just your resistance. And it's that place where, when you have those inner nudges, like, hey, I'm not safe, you get the heck out. Right. So I have a funny story about James Ray. I started my first podcast, my own, in 2007, 2008. And I was scheduled to interview James Ray, and I saw him at a live event in Minneapolis. And he had this, he was very gracious in the way that he presented himself. And he was outside the door of the auditorium where he was speaking, and he was shaking everybody's hands when they came in. And he shook my hand, and I was like, the juju from this guy was so not good for me. I literally was like, I'm not even going in this room with this person. There's something really off here. And I canceled the interview the next day. And my producer was really mad at me because he was like, this is a big deal. And you are blowing this interview. And I was like, I literally can't talk to this man. I'm going to throw up. And then the sweat lodge incident happened about 2 months later. And I thought, oh, that's so interesting that I had such a visceral response. But I want to share that story because I think that that's so much a part of what this year especially is about, that we have to be able to give ourselves permission to say, hey, I'm sorry, but this doesn't feel right to me. And I think especially us, and I'm not trying to exclude men, and I'm not saying men don't have this either, but I think especially us as women, we're conditioned to be nice, right? We're conditioned to deny those feelings and to go through with these, obligations that we have because we've been trained. That's not polite to have those thoughts about someone. And we really have to just keep untying ourselves from all of those old narratives. And I'm not saying, again, men also can have that as well, but to really stop, let yourself really just say, I'm not sure why, but this doesn't feel right to me right now. And that needs to become a normal response to something. That sometimes it's okay to not have a reasonable or a logical reason why, but that it just feels off. And that we should be.
You weren't matching in vibration. You can
Right.
tell,
Totally.
when you meet somebody that just gives you that off feeling, a lot of times it's because they have a low vibration and you're sensing that and picking it up, that there's negative something there. But overtly, so many people are good at hiding that. Look at narcissists as a prime example.
Right.
Can you actually spot that in a human design chart? Like somebody actually, I didn't think so.
The chart is a map of how you process energy. It does not explain everything. And I think that's also a really important piece to pay attention to, because I find people really want to find things in the chart. And sometimes, people are the way they are because of reasons that are not in the chart. So.
Yeah. Karen, can I jump in and say no and? Because we were talking about gate 44 for me. I smell when things are up.
Oh, totally.
It's not the cause of why they're up. It's not anything like that. But for me, like, I know, like, so I could just give a personal example. I'm the storyteller. I knew this man in our community. I didn't like the smell of him. I did not like his smell. And it wasn't just physical. Whenever I got around him, I was like, it was always my nose. And somebody brought that up to me and said, Nancy, every time you're around this person, you take your nose, you scrunch it away like you're smelling something horrible. And he actually wore this really attractive cologne. I mean, really attractive. Like, it was like, hey, you smell good, But my nose was always like,
Animals can pick up on that stuff. A dog will smell somebody when they walk in the door and be like, "Nah, there's something right
I'm a dog
about
in
you."
Chinese zodiac. But long story short, though, when I learned, about gate 44, it's the nose. It's being able to smell something out. And so, like, it gave me the freedom. Like, I mean, I always trusted that irregardless, but now I trust it, period, rather than I trust it, comma. And it doesn't explain why or what or who or when or any of that, but it just gave a certain sense of, like, wow, fall in love with yourself. And like, that's the message, like, that I think that out of this is fall in love with yourself. Yourself knows.
Yes, totally.
Yourself knows. And, in back when that was happening for me, I was still very much conditioned into the lower sense of tribal. I was always more concerned about the tribe and more about that to the exclusion of myself. And so I didn't I kept myself away from this individual because my nose kept saying, whoa, 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 right? But
Mm-hmm.
on the same token, I was so conditioned by my community that I was within, like, oh, that person's so great. I don't know why you lean away from that person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I don't know either, but then it proved to be true yet again that that person wasn't a safe person for most people around that person,
Mm-hmm.
and it ended up being an issue of safety once again. So I don't think that, the chart, like you're saying, Karen, tells us isn't the creator and the divine, and yet it was channeled in for us to have as well.
Totally. And I think again that's it's a testament to the chart will tell you how you are.
Yeah.
But it won't necessarily tell you who you are, especially when you're living out that shadow piece. I mean, you can see where it can show up, right? You can see different archetypal themes in that chart because it's a soul curriculum, right?
Yeah.
It tells you these are the stories that you're going to be playing with again and again and again through every cycle of your life, through your cycles of growth, through your astrological cycles, through your lifestyle, life changes cycles.
Yep.
You'll have these themes that play out. And really, once you start to understand the themes in that chart, you start to recognize, oh, in my soul curriculum, I'm going to be challenged. Like with you, for example, with your gate 44, part of your challenge is learning to trust yourself. You probably have
Yes.
an ongoing theme in your life about knowing something, having that I know how I know, I don't know how I know that I know, but I know that I know, right?
It's in my chart a couple hundred times.
Yeah. And so you know that about yourself. And now you understand, okay, when I'm confronted in these situations, and you and I have had a little bit more experience in the path of life, but now I would venture to guess in the beginning of your life when you were in your 20s and 30s, that was probably a big part of what you had to learn, how to trust yourself, even when it looked like something else out here. And having that information about your chart and in conjunction with that, because it's not just knowing the chart, it's knowing how to find the high point in the story and integrate that high point into your self-perception so that when you're looking at the world through the lens of the story that you're telling yourself in the world about who you are, you're telling yourself a story that meets the potential of who you are, that allows you to live out that high expression so that you are staying in that highly creative space and you are able to, especially, as I said, during this time of just massive change, you're able to continue to pivot and adapt and stay connected to the heart of who you are when all this change is happening around you and not become a victim of shadow elements or a victim of outdated conditioning and outdated lineages that are being rewritten as we speak.
While you bring that up, Karen, I'd like to invite you to tell us a little bit about Story Lab. And we have the good fortune on the East Coast in New York to have Karen come to visit in May. Mm-hmm. She will be at the Omega Center in Rhinebeck, New York, May 24th, 25th, 26th.
Yep.
I can't wait. One of my favorite people and one of my favorite locations. That's a vacation for me. So I am definitely looking forward to that. Mm-hmm. But Karen has created this really cool system called Story Lab. Mm-hmm. And what it does is help you to explore, start at one point of your story and really explore the pathway that leads you from lowest to highest expression is how I view it. And it's great to have both because then you're aware when both are occurring and you're living them out. And so I'm wondering if you want to share just a little bit about Story Lab with us. And
Absolutely. So we're going to be doing over the course of 3 days a program called Elevate Your Life Script, which is Story Lab. And basically we're going to be taking your individual human design chart and breaking that story down into all the parts of the chart. So we'll be looking at your type, your profiles, your centers. We'll be looking at the main character in your story and what I like to call the sacred flaw in your story and really give you back control over the story you tell about who you are and how you are. It is literally a storytelling process. So in my research that I did last year, one of the things, because I just completed my PhD last year, one of the things that I looked at in my research study was how does our personal story impact the body? And in specifics, I studied immunology and the immune response to our personal stories. And what I learned was that when we use creativity to rewrite any old story, especially stories that have us stuck in either victim consciousness or stories that keep us stuck in a place of disempowerment, that when we use creativity to rewrite those stories, we actually can not only start to integrate a better story about who we are, but we actually can begin to improve the capacity that the body has for optimal well-being and wellness. So over these 2.5 days, you're going to learn all about your human design chart. You're going to learn about the entire spectrum of the parts of the story that is in your chart. And then you're going to use this very beautiful storytelling process where you're going to actually literally write the story of your chart for yourself. So we do it either through poetry or storytelling or doing art. And then we share these stories with each other in this beautiful experience where you get to really live that story. And of course, it's at the Omega Institute. So it's a place where you can go outside and integrate your story and be in nature and be inspired and be creative and work in community with each other. And it's just an incredible process to witness and experience in person. You know, one of the things that's really powerful is that when we hold old stories, particularly stories that cause us to internalize the story that it's not okay or safe for us to be who we are and how we are, the brain actually stores that story in present time, in the part of the brain that's associated with present time. When we try to reason our way through those stories, when we keep telling that story, trying to get ourselves unstuck from it, we actually just keep re-triggering that present time sort of low grade stress / PTSD response. When we go over to the other side of the brain and we use storytelling and play and creative exploration, we actually take the story, those limiting stories, out of time, literally in the brain. And when we take them out of time, we actually get out of reactive cycles, and we actually can break old thought patterns and old narratives by working from the right side of the brain versus the left side of the brain, and use play and creativity as a powerful way to unleash yourself from old patterns and old habits of reactivity and limiting beliefs.
It's beautiful. I'm super
where can
excited.
we find information about this? Is there signups and that sort of thing? Where can we access that?
If you go to the Omega Center workshop, I'm trying to find you the link.
I had it and then I never used it. And then of course
I'll find it.
Links, this whole link thing, let's link it and provide information to get to one place to another. You'd think I have mastered this, but as a generator, and I'm telling you, I'm going to hire a virtual assistant.
All right. I am not able to post in the comments, but I will.
No, I got it, love. I've got it. eomega.org. I found it. The campus workshop. There it is.
And it's Omega. It's, as I said, it's a beautiful campus. The food is good. You can stay there.
The bookshop's good.
Yeah, it's just a very
intentional space. So. Here's the link for Quantum Human Design as well. If you guys want to get a chart done today, you can learn some more about yourselves that way. QuantumHumanDesign.com, yeah?
Yes, exactly.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. I will post my my chart in the comments so that way we can all compare ours, guys, because I did do mine a minute ago. So thank you for that free resource. That's very cool. It'll be nice to learn more. And I'm going to start Googling around too.
Good job. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much. And I appreciate you coming on Divinate as well. It's really helpful for the community to learn all of these things. It helps us with our shadow work and all the things that we need to do to raise our vibration and to take some steps forward. So very, very helpful. And thank you for supporting us in that way.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Nan, for making this opportunity. I enjoy being here. We had a lot of fun last week and I really enjoyed being here today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I enjoy it. We can just give that credit to Spirit because I just heard him whisper, ask Karen. And I don't know who I was sharing that with this morning, but I was like, I would have never thought to ask that, like in my own head, like I wouldn't have. And I just heard that voice, like, ask Karen, because there's something that we need to, I'm up forever connecting, right? Forever connecting the resources. That's just me. But, yeah.
Yes, most
Awesome.
definitely.
Good job.
Yeah. So I thank you
Cool.
for responding and bringing it to our community, and Laura for hosting it and showing up every day for us. Like, that's such a wonderful thing. And yeah, appreciate it.
We'll definitely have you back, Karen. There's a lot that we could go into this. So maybe next time we'll have you on. We could do some charts for people or something. That would be a lot of fun.
That would be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, much love, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget that at 3 p.m. on Divinate and paid membership, Laura Whitworth will be delivering her last session about entities today. So you don't want to miss that for those of you who are interested. Thank you so much to both of you, and especially Nan for setting this up. We love you, Nan. Appreciate you very much.
I love you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Much love,
Thank
guys.
you.
See you tomorrow. Bye.